Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining us on our Facebook Live, 18 Now What? We are here at Nero's and we are having happy hour because why not? And we decided to do this because both Allie and myself have children who turned 18, and we realized, you don't know what you don't know. And there was so much that we actually did not know. Oh, it is officially 6 o'clock in Livingston. Listen, you know that this is live now because it's officially 6 o'clock. In case anyone was worried that it wasn't actually live, it is actually live. Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. And we were lucky enough that we have our friend and colleague and attorney, Donnie Feinberg, who is a real estate attorney and a family law attorney, so she was able to answer all of our questions and handle everything that we needed handled. So we're going to actually be speaking with her and having a Q&A, and some people sent us some questions, so we're going to be asking her those questions. So what I also want to point out is that if you want information, we have the link in the notes, so definitely click on the link if you want information about this for afterwards, and we'll send it to you. But now I'm going to turn it over to Donnie. So Donnie, my kid just turned 18. Now what?
Hi everyone, thank you so much. Thank you Sage and Allie for hosting and for having me to have this really important conversation. My child just turned 18, now what? So the short answer is it's time to have a conversation with your child as a family. It's time for the parents to explain to your child what it means to be an adult. And we have these conversations on so many levels, but on this level it's, what do you need to do to protect the child, to protect your child, to protect your parents during this really important transition where things are going to change now that your child is a legal adult at age 18.
So if they want more information.
So what you need to do, obviously there's an important plan that you have to put in place step by step. You can click the link. Obviously these decisions are important as well as personal. So depending on the state you live in, depending on where your kids are going to college, depending on the dynamic and who's making the decisions on behalf of your child, those are important decisions that every family needs to have. And if you click the link, we'll provide a step-by-step guide to answer all of those questions for you.
Thank you so much, Donnie. All right, so we're going to put it out to the group. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes.
Oh, Allie, okay.
Hi. So what happens if my children need to go to a doctor or a hospital?
So of course that's one of the most common concerns that everyone has is, will you have access to your children's health care? Will you have access to their doctors, to a hospital? And the answer is yes, you can absolutely. The goal is to have the conversations with your child, to have the paperwork in place so that you can have access to them both on behalf of your child and also on behalf of the state laws and being in compliance with all the HIPAA regulations and all of that, which is why it's important to make sure that you have those conversations and consult with all of the important resources that you have in order to properly document all of these important conversations and agreements.
Yeah, that's great. And also just reminding everybody, if you want this information afterwards, please just click the link below. Anyone else have any questions? Beth, do you have a question? Oh, and I want to point out, we're actually here with our TLC group because this is a life transition. So we were able to get everybody from the TLC group except for Bari. Sorry, Bari, I know it's accounting season, so we hope you're watching. We'll see you soon. But here's Beth. One sec.
Hi, everybody. Donnie, I'm wondering if you can appoint two people, like if the parents are divorced, can they both have access?
So the answer is yes. In New Jersey, you can, depending on what the form is, each form is handled a little bit differently when we're talking about financial decisions or when we're talking about different types of powers of attorney, different HIPAA forms and healthcare proxies. There are times that you need to choose to appoint an attorney, in fact, in order of priority, but absolutely there are ways to manage that, to appoint both parents to act on behalf of their child or to have access to their records. It's really important, even though those conversations are really difficult, it's really important that families, married or divorced, have those conversations and make those decisions together to act in the best interest of the children, of course. But again, difficult but important conversations to have. The answer is yes.
Thank you, Donnie. I think that was a great question, Beth. Thank you for asking that. And Carolyn joined us. Thank you, thank you. Do you have a question as well?
Yes,
Awesome.
I definitely do.
Okay.
Donnie, I have a question regarding, depending on where our children go to college, which state, do we need different documents for that state? Like my daughter went to school in DC and my son is in North Carolina.
That's a great question.
So again, the answer, of course, like, you know, the answers that we hate to hear from lawyers that we hear so often is it depends. Some of the forms, yes, some no. On university level, it's a little bit of a different conversation. Generally speaking, if you have the right forms in place, you can act on behalf of your children when it comes to doctors, hospitals, healthcare, things like that. Different universities have different policies in terms of accessing the student's disciplinary record, grades, things like that. And the answer is it depends. So there's a federal form, and sometimes that needs to be filled out. Certain universities require it, others don't. So it's important to ask your university when your child decides where they're going to school, what their policies are. But for the most part, the package, for example, that I recommend to my clients is inclusive of that and will give an idea of documents that will basically cover wherever your student is going to school.
Thanks, Donnie. Oh, Beth, do you have another question here?
Related to this, is there any situation that overrides this? Like if the kids stopped showing up for class or dropped out, or I recently had that with a client that they stopped showing up for class and one of the deans reached out to the parents. I don't know if they had signed something previously.
So exactly, that's the answer. For the most part, a lot of those decisions are things that are actually decided and things that are formed. There are things that parents and students actually have signed that they may or may not be aware of. So it's really important. No one wants to read those forms. Everyone wants to scroll through and click that they've read it. But it is important to read some of those documents and agreements and waivers that are sent by the university when they inundate you with lots of paperwork. But most likely in that case, the parents have agreed. Most of the time the university does have a fallback and a default where they do reach out to parents in any of those events, which of course, you know, works out well for everyone because it's, you know, again, the whole concept here is transitions, and you know, they're 18-year-olds still, they're adults, but they're young adults. It's the first time. It's certainly a transition for the student as well as the parents.
Does anything change when they turn 21? From 18 to 21, is there any documents that are different?
The only difference is that it's, you know, the legal drinking age in many states. Other than that, no.
Fair enough, fair enough. Actually, while we have Beth here, I know a number of us had a couple of questions, you know, from your profession, like is there anything that if somebody, you know, as a doctor, if somebody's seeing you and they turn 18, does anything change there?
That's a great question, Sage. If they're in therapy, I can't speak for other doctors, but once they turn 18, the parents don't have access to the therapist anymore. They cannot have contact with the parents unless they get something signed by the 18-year-old that allows them to discuss it with the parents.
Thank you so much. And anybody, obviously we're going a little quickly. If you have anything, you know, that you want to ask or anything you want to know, please click the link, okay? And then I have a question as well. So I'm wondering this, you know, I do have a student who's about to go to college, and, you know, can a parent apply for student loans in the name of a child without the student's knowledge, or do you need like some sort of signature? You know, can you explain that a little bit?
So once a child is 18, and it varies depending on the lender, but for the most part, no, a parent can't take out a loan in a child's name that the child isn't aware of. Of course, students can apply for their own loans, and there are different states handle this differently. In New Jersey, parents are actually responsible for the college education of their children if they can provide it. So it really depends on the personal dynamic of the family in terms of, you know, what loans are applied for. But in terms of a parent being able to apply for loans in their student's name without the student's knowledge, no. The answer to that would be no.
Good, I would hope not. I was just checking. Oh, hold on. Allie, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just have another quick question. So I know you touched on this in the beginning, but what is the conversation, the actual conversation we should be having with our children as we enter the 18th year? We would never want them to, you know, with them signing forms and
That's really a great question, and it's really important. Again, it comes down to having those difficult conversations, and it's really educating your child as to what it means to be an adult and what it means to be responsible. But of course, being there, to work in the same family dynamic where you're there to be able to support them. So the conversation is about what they're doing, that they're going to be signing legal documents, that they're now old enough to sign legal documents, what each document means, and explaining to them so that they're actually understanding why they want to sign these documents and be willing to sign these documents, and be responsible for them.
Thank you so much, Donnie. That's great. And Carolyn, I know, is there anything that you would like to add about
I would
when
just
someone
say
turns
from
18?
the financial point of view, look at your 529s carefully, who's in charge, because a lot of times in divorce situations, once you get divorced, the spouse whose name is not on the documents may not have access when they pick up the phone to call. It's really important. It can be very frustrating. I've had that with a lot of clients.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great
so to make sure you're CC'd on the documents.
So what's actually the process?
So-
like what is? Yeah.
So
sorry.
just to add to that, because it really is important in terms of divorce and 529 plans. Something else when anyone is going through a divorce, that is something that we always look to see is who is actually going to manage the 529 plans. And at that time, both parents can be added, or the decision can be made that it is only one parent. But those are things that get negotiated in the pendency of that divorce. So it really is important. That's something you really want to consider, so that you're not leaving those decisions to presenting themselves at a really inopportune time later on. So really important. And also going back to the student loan question in terms of, I just wanted to clarify, because I see some questions that parents can of course apply for them in their children's names, but the idea is not making the children liable without of course their consent and knowledge.
Thank you for clarifying that. Does anyone else have any questions? This was super informative for me. I could just say, I can speak to this a little bit because, especially with COVID going on, we all had to go for a COVID test at some point in the last 6 months. And my daughter, who turned 18, forgot her driver's license. And guess what? I was not able to register her for this. And my husband needed to go home and get her license so that she could register herself to get the test. So there's definitely a lot to know. And, I did call Donnie, from the doctor's office to say, what do I need to do? And, luckily she was able to assist me with that. So does anyone else have anything? Just you're all here, heroes. Yeah. Thank you. All right. So Donnie, thank you so much. This was super helpful. I know for me, for Allie, for all of us, and I know everybody here. And obviously, if anybody wants, the answers to these questions or just more information, please click the link and we can send that right off to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye-bye.